Hello, my friend. The world of magic, filled with legends and ancient tales, is opening its gates once again. Tonight, in the Gryffindor dormitory by the crackling fireplace, I will share another story with my friends. Join us, for the magic is about to come alive.
The lamps along the Hogwarts corridors burned low that night, their golden light pooling over the ancient stones like honey. It was late, well past curfew, and most of the castle slept soundly. Yet in the shadowed stairway that spiraled toward the Slytherin common room, Selena Vane moved in silence, her robes whispering against the cold stone. She was not a rule breaker by habit. Quiet, clever, and often unnoticed, Selena blended easily into the green and silver tides of her house. But tonight something strange had called her awake, a voice faint as mist, curling through her dreams and drawing her from her bed. Come below. Find what was forgotten. It was not the first time she'd heard it. For 3 nights now the same whisper had haunted her sleep, soft yet urgent, a hiss that slid beneath her thoughts, like the rustle of leaves. And so, candle in hand, she followed where it led. The dungeons were deep, deeper than most students realized. The air grew colder as she descended, her flame flickering in the drafts that sighed through narrow gaps in the stone. Strange marks carved into the walls caught the light, ancient runes that shimmered faintly green, older than the school itself. Selena paused, her breath visible in the chill. She'd always felt something different about these halls, something the others didn't notice. The Slytherin common room, with its emerald lamps and windows peering into the dark waters of the lake, felt almost alive to her, as if the walls remembered whispers and secrets long buried. But tonight, that feeling pressed closer. At the end of the passage, her candlelight touched something new, a door she'd never seen before. It wasn't quite a door, really, but a seam in the stone shaped like a serpent's coil. In the serpent's eye glittered a faint trace of silver. Selena set down her candle and brushed the dust away. As her fingers traced the carving, the air seemed to shiver. A faint voice, low and ancient, filled her ears once more. Open. She didn't know why she did it. Perhaps instinct guided her, or something older than that. Her lips parted, and before she could think to stop herself, she whispered, "Open." Only it wasn't English. It was Parseltongue. The serpent's eye flared green. With a grinding rumble, the seam in the wall split open, revealing a narrow stair curling downward into the dark. Selena stood frozen. She had heard of Parseltongue, of course. Who hadn't? The language of serpents, the mark of Salazar Slytherin himself, and once of Voldemort. No one at Hogwarts had spoken it in years. Yet she had. The candle trembled in her hand. A sensible voice in her head urged her to turn back, to fetch a teacher, to forget what she'd seen. But curiosity, sharp and insistent, burned brighter than fear. She stepped through the opening and began her descent. The steps spiraled endlessly downward. Moss coated the walls, and her candlelight caught on droplets of water that hung from the ceiling like tiny stars. When she finally reached the bottom, she found herself standing in a vast circular chamber. The air was thick with the smell of age and stone, and the faint ripple of unseen water echoed in the dark. At the center of the floor rested a marble pedestal. Upon it lay a small, leather-bound book, the cover embossed with the image of a coiled serpent. Selina approached, heart hammering. The book looked impossibly old, its edges brittle with time. She hesitated, then reached out and brushed the dust away. Letters shimmered faintly across the cover. SS. Salazar Slytherin, she breathed. Her fingers trembled as she opened the first page. Inside, the ink was dark and deliberate, the handwriting sharp and elegant. To my blood yet to come, to the one who carries the gift of the serpent's tongue, know that the house of Slytherin was not founded on darkness, but on power misunderstood. Seek the serpent's tear, for in it lies the truth of our line. Selina blinked. The words felt alive on the page, as though the voice of the writer still echoed faintly through the centuries. The serpent's tear. She'd never heard the name before. She turned another page, but the rest of the journal was blank. Empty parchment, waiting for something or someone. A faint vibration rippled through the floor, and from the shadows along the wall came a sound, a soft hiss, low and distant. Selina spun around, raising her candle. The air seemed to move, the darkness shifting, as if something unseen slithered just beyond the reach of light. "Who's there?" she whispered. The hiss grew louder, and then, for the briefest heartbeat, she thought she saw it. Two faintly glowing eyes, green as emeralds, watching her from the dark. The candle sputtered and went out. Selina ran. She climbed the stairs 2 at a time, her breath ragged, her heart pounding in her chest. When she burst through the hidden door, it sealed shut behind her. With a heavy groan, the serpent's carving glimmered once more, and then faded, leaving nothing but smooth stone. Selina pressed her back to the wall, trembling. The candle was gone, her hands were shaking, and her mind reeled. She had spoken Parseltongue. She had opened a door that should not exist. And she had found the writing of Salazar Slytherin himself. Far above her, a clock tolled midnight. The sound echoed through the dungeons, deep and hollow, as if the castle itself had felt the shift. Whatever had awakened beneath Hogwarts that night, it had not gone back to sleep, and neither, she knew, would she. Morning came slow and gray over the towers of Hogwarts. Rain streaked the tall windows of the great hall, and thunder rolled distantly over the forbidden forest. Candles flickered above the 4 long tables, throwing restless light across sleepy faces and steaming plates of porridge. Selina Vane sat at the end of the Slytherin table, staring into her untouched breakfast. The night still clung to her thoughts. The hiss in the dark, the eyes like green fire, the journal that now rested hidden beneath her mattress. She hadn't slept since she'd returned from the dungeons. Across the hall, laughter rose from the Gryffindor table. Albus Potter was telling some story to his friends, waving his hands dramatically. Beside him, Scorpius Malfoy gave a rare smile. They were an odd pair, those two. One the son of a legend, the other the heir to a name that still made some parents whisper. Yet somehow, they fit together like pieces of the same strange puzzle. Selina tore her gaze away. She didn't belong in any story like that. She was ordinary, or had been, until last night. A drop of ink splattered across her plate. Frowning, she looked up. The enchanted ceiling had darkened, thick clouds gathering until the light turned an eerie greenish hue. Then from somewhere far down the corridor came a sound that froze the air, a scream. The hall erupted in noise, chairs scraping, voices shouting. Professors rose at once, their wands drawn. Professor Longbottom sprinted toward the doors, followed by several students too curious to stay seated. Selena's spoon clattered to the table. Her heart sank, though she didn't know why. Moments later, whispers rippled through the hall like wildfire. Another attack. Someone's been petrified, just like years ago. Selena's blood ran cold. Another attack? She pushed through the crowd, her mind spinning. The whispers sharpened into words as she neared the entrance hall. On the floor before the grand staircase lay a Ravenclaw boy, stiff as stone, his eyes wide with frozen terror. Above him, written across the wall in jagged, dripping letters, were 5 chilling words. "The heir has returned." Professor McGonagall's voice cut through the murmurs. "Everyone back to your dormitories immediately." The students obeyed, but the hall buzzed with fear and curiosity. Selena stood still, unable to move. "The heir." The words burned behind her eyes. She could almost hear the echo of the journal's first line, "To my blood, yet to come." That night, Hogwarts was locked down. Prefects patrolled the corridors, and no one was permitted to wander after dark. Yet even under such strict watch, whispers bloomed like shadows. Some said it was a ghost, others a curse revived. A few whispered the old name that everyone feared to speak aloud, Slytherin's heir. Selena sat by her window, long after lights out, watching rain streak across the glass. The journal lay open on her lap. She'd read it again and again, though it offered no further clues. Only that first page, that promise of hidden truth. She turned the book over, running her fingers along the spine. Then something strange caught her eye. The edge of one page shimmered faintly under the moonlight. She pried it open, and a slip of parchment fell into her lap. It bore a map, not of Hogwarts as she knew it, but of a lower layer beneath the school. Tunnels and chambers stretched in twisting patterns. One was marked with an ancient rune, a snake coiled around a teardrop. The words beneath it read, "The tear lies where stone remembers the lake." Selena frowned. It made little sense, yet something about the phrase stirred her memory. The Slytherin common room with its view into the lake's depths. She didn't realize she'd spoken aloud until a voice answered. "You're planning to sneak out, aren't you?" Selena jumped, slamming the book shut. Standing by the door was Scorpius Malfoy, his pale hair catching the dim light. He leaned casually against the wall, though his gray eyes watched her keenly. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "I might ask you the same. I saw you at breakfast. You looked like someone who'd seen a ghost." He paused. "Or a basilisk." Selena's throat tightened. "What do you mean?" He shrugged. "Just that the last time something like this happened, there was one. My father told me stories about it. I know the signs." She hesitated, torn between secrecy and the need to share the burden that had been gnawing at her since last night. Finally, she whispered, "I think I found something. A room, hidden under the dungeons, and a journal. It belonged to Salazar Slytherin." Scorpius's brows rose. "That's impossible. I saw his initials, and there was writing. He mentioned something called the Serpent's Tear." His expression hardened. "If that's true, you can't go down there alone. Not now. Not with attacks starting again." Before she could reply, another voice joined them. "Then I suppose I'm coming too." Albus Potter stepped out of the shadows, his wand lit with a soft glow. "If this is connected to the last time the chamber opened, we're not ignoring it. You'll need help." Selena stared at the two boys, a Potter and a Malfoy, both of them looking at her as though she were the key to something vast and dangerous. For a moment, she almost laughed at the absurdity. Then she saw the seriousness in their eyes and nodded. "All right," she said quietly. "We go tomorrow night." The next evening, the castle fell silent early. The three of them met in the dungeons, cloaks drawn tight, the air thick with the smell of damp stone. Selena led them to the wall with the serpent carving. The silver in its eye glimmered faintly as she approached. Albus frowned. "There's nothing here." "Watch," Selena whispered. She leaned close and hissed, "Open." The stones split apart with a grinding sigh. Both boys stepped back, eyes wide. "You're a parcel mouth," Albus breathed. Selena hesitated. The word stung, echoing with old fear and judgment. "I didn't know until yesterday," she said softly. "But if this is part of who I am, I'll use it to find the truth." They descended the stairs into the darkness. Their wand light revealed walls, slick with moss and carvings of serpents that seemed to writhe as the light passed over them. At the bottom, the chamber waited, silent, ancient, and immense. The pedestal still stood, though the journal was gone, tucked safely in Selena's satchel. Albus moved his light across the floor, revealing the faint outlines of other passages branching away. "There are more tunnels," he murmured. "It's like the Chamber of Secrets, only bigger." Selena pulled out the hidden parchment. The rune marked one of the lower tunnels. "This way," she said. They followed the twisting passage until they reached a stone door carved with a weeping serpent. The words of the map came back to her, where stone remembers the lake. Moisture trickled down the walls. Somewhere above, water dripped in steady rhythm. Selena placed her hand against the carving. "Open," she whispered again in parcel tongue. The door shuddered and slid aside. Beyond it lay a cavern filled with still, dark water. A faint green light glowed from beneath the surface, illuminating shapes that moved slowly in the depths. At the edge of the water, a marble statue rose, Slytherin himself, robed and proud, his hand outstretched as though offering something unseen. Nestled in his palm was a crystal tear, glowing faintly with a pulsing green heart. "The serpent's tear," Selena breathed. But before she could take a step closer, a voice echoed through the chamber, low, cold, and mocking. "So, the daughter has found her inheritance." They spun around. A tall figure emerged from the shadows, his wand raised, his eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. "Professor Thane," Albus gasped. The defense against the dark arts teacher smiled thinly. "You've done well, Miss Vane. I knew the blood would call to you eventually." Selena's stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" He stepped closer, his voice a hiss. "You are the last of Slytherin's true line. The tear was yours by birthright, but you were never meant to use it for good." Lightning flashed somewhere far above, and the green light of the tear flickered brighter, casting long shadows over the chamber walls. The storm outside had broken, and within the depths of Hogwarts, another one had just begun. For a long moment, no one spoke. The air in the cavern felt heavy and electric, thick with the scent of water and something darker, old magic, ancient and patient. Selena's breath came fast. Her wand trembled slightly in her hand. Professor Corin Thane stepped fully into the light. He was tall, thin, and sharp as a blade, his dark robes dripping with the moisture of the underground air. His wand was steady, his eyes gleaming with a hunger that made Selena's stomach twist. "I've watched you for months, Miss Vane," he said softly. "Quiet, clever, a mind fit for secrets. You could have been anything, but fate had already chosen. I only had to wait for your blood to remember what it was. Selena's pulse thundered in her ears. You're wrong, she said, her voice low but steady. I'm not part of any of this. I just found the chamber. Thane's laugh echoed harsh and cold. You found it because it called you. The serpent always finds its heir. Beside her, Albus and Scorpius exchanged a glance. Albus lifted his wand slightly, but Thane's gaze flicked toward him. I wouldn't, Mr. Potter, he said softly. This place is older than you can imagine. The stones here remember the words of their master. They answer to me now. He gestured toward the statue of Salazar Slytherin, and at once the ground trembled. The surface of the dark water rippled violently. A low hiss rose from the depths, deep and ancient, and the green glow pulsed brighter. Selena took a step back, her heart pounding. What are you doing? Awakening the Guardian, Thane whispered. The creature your ancestor created to protect his legacy. The basilisk of the deep. No, Selena said, shaking her head. That thing was destroyed years ago. Thane smiled thinly. Destroyed? No, only one of them. Slytherin bred more than one servant girl. The serpent's tear is the heart that binds their will, and now it will be mine. He raised his wand. The tear flared, spilling green light across the chamber. The water erupted in a geyser of spray, and from the depths rose a vast shadow. The hiss became a roar that shook the stones. Selena stumbled back as a head emerged, scaled, enormous, eyes burning like emerald fire. The basilisk. Its size dwarfed the cavern, its coils sliding through the water with terrible grace. The air turned icy cold, and the stench of ancient things filled her lungs. Albus grabbed her arm, pulling her behind a pillar of rock. Don't look at its eyes, he shouted. She clutched her wand. We can't fight that, not without mirrors, nothing. Scorpius pointed toward the statue. The tear. It's controlling it. Thane said so. Selena followed his gaze. The tear pulsed in Slytherin's stone hand, glowing in rhythm with the creature's movements. She felt its call deep in her chest, a hum of power, a whisper that coiled through her mind. Take it, the voice seemed to say. It is yours. Thane raised his wand again. Kneel, child of Slytherin, accept your inheritance and join me. Together we will cleanse this school of its weakness. The bloodlines will rise again. Selena's fear flared into anger. You talk about purity, she said, stepping from behind the pillar, but you don't even understand the man whose name you worship. Slytherin wasn't just power, he was knowledge. You twist his legacy into something hateful, Thane sneered, spoken like a child of compromise. He flicked his wand. Imperio. The spell shot toward her in a streak of gold. She dove aside, rolling across the wet stone. Albus countered with a blast of red light, shouting, Expelliarmus! The spells collided in a flare that lit the cavern. The basilisk lunged, its tail smashing into the wall where Selena had stood. Stone shattered, water surged. She scrambled toward the statue, the tear glowing brighter as she neared. She could feel it tugging at her, an invisible thread, ancient and strong. Behind her, Albus and Scorpius tried to distract the basilisk, hurling spells that fizzled harmlessly against its scales. Thane advanced, his eyes burning with fury. Do you really think you can master the serpent's will? He shouted. It will devour you, just as it did the others. Selena reached the base of the statue. The tear pulsed, its light washing over her hands. She hesitated only a moment, then seized it. A shock ran through her, a surge of cold fire that stole her breath. The voice filled her head again, stronger now, resonant and ancient. blood of my blood. Speak and be obeyed." The basilisk froze, its massive head turned toward her, those terrible eyes gleaming. Thane's face twisted in disbelief. "No, it's mine. Obey me," he roared, thrusting his wand toward the creature. Selena raised her voice, the words flowing from her lips like breath itself. They were not English. They were parcel tongue. "Stand down." The basilisk hesitated, then lowered its head slowly, its coils settling back into the water. The cavern trembled with the weight of its submission. Thane screamed in fury. "You'll pay for this." He lunged forward, hurling a curse that missed her by inches and struck the statue behind her. The impact cracked the stone hand that had held the tear. Shards fell into the water below. Selena turned, the tear's light still burning in her grasp. "You'll never control me," she said softly, "and you'll never control this school." She raised her wand. "Stupefy." The red bolt struck Thane squarely in the chest. He flew backward, hitting the ground with a dull thud. His wand rolled away into the dark. For a moment the cavern was silent, but for the slow drip of water and the faint hum of magic around the tear. Albus and Scorpius ran to her side, breathless, their faces pale. "Is he—" Scorpius began. "Unconscious," Selena said, her voice trembling slightly. "For now." Albus stared at the tear still glowing faintly in her hand. "What are you going to do with it?" Selena looked at the serpent, now motionless in the water. She felt the power thrumming through her, immense and terrible, like the echo of an old song. And she knew that if she kept it, the temptation to use it would never fade. "I'm going to end it," she said. She turned to the statue and pressed the tear into the crack that had formed in its hand. The stone closed around it, sealing it within. The glow dimmed, then vanished. The basilisk let out a low hiss, almost mournful, and slowly sank back into the depths. The water stilled, the air lightened as if a great weight had lifted. Selena swayed, exhaustion washing over her. Albus caught her arm before she could fall. "It's done," he murmured. "You did it?" She shook her head weakly. "No, I only stopped it. For now." Her gaze drifted to the faint shimmer where the tear had been hidden. "Some things aren't meant to be found again." Scorpius gave a short, nervous laugh. "Let's hope Hogwarts agrees with you." They turned to leave, but as they climbed the stairs, Selena looked back one last time. The serpent statue stood silent in the gloom, its face unreadable. A faint crack of light shimmered briefly where the tear was buried, then went dark. When they reached the hidden door, she spoke once more in the tongue that had once terrified her. "Close." The stone sealed behind them, leaving the chamber forever buried in shadow. None of them noticed the faint whisper that followed, carried on the last ripple of the underground air. A voice older than centuries, calm and certain. "The daughter has chosen her path, but the blood remembers." Rain lashed against the castle towers that night, howling through the narrow slits of the stone halls. The storm had not ceased since the chamber's awakening, as though the sky itself was furious at what had been uncovered. Beneath Hogwarts, Selena Vane sat alone in the Slytherin common room, staring into the flickering green fire that burned low in the hearth. Shadows danced on the walls like restless ghosts. The others had long gone to bed, though even in their sleep she doubted they found peace. The school was tense, uneasy. Rumors ran faster than owls. Professor Thane had disappeared. When they had returned to the chamber after reporting the attack, his body was gone. No trace of him remained, no footprints, no wand. Not even the faintest shimmer of disapparition magic, but the tear's glow had vanished too, sealed within the statue. The balance of what remained was fragile, like glass poised to break. Selena's reflection glimmered faintly on the fire-polished stones. She hardly recognized herself. There were faint, dark circles under her eyes, and her hands still shook at times when she remembered the basilisk's roar. She was the daughter of Slytherin. The thought refused to leave her mind. Blood of my blood. Speak and be obeyed. The words echoed from that night, like a curse and a promise both. She wondered what kind of man Salazar Slytherin had truly been. The founders were all stories now, myths told in class, their flaws softened by time. But his magic had been real as the voice that had risen in her mind. The fire crackled softly. Behind her, the lake pressed against the window like a dark mirror, moonlight glinting off drifting shapes in the water. Then she heard it again, a hiss, faint, uncertain, yet undeniably there. Her heart skipped. She rose slowly, turning toward the sound. It came not from the lake, but from the stone wall near the fireplace. She approached cautiously. The hiss came again, long, slow, whispering in a rhythm almost like speech. She could not understand the words, but she felt them, and they chilled her to the bone. Without thinking, she answered in the serpent's tongue. "Who are you?" The response slid into her mind like smoke. Watcher, guardian, bound to the blood. "Bound to me," she whispered, to the line. "The tear sleeps, but its echo remains. Beware the one who fled. The false heir seeks what you denied him." Her pulse quickened. "Thane?" The voice faded into silence, leaving only the sound of the fire and her own quick breathing. She turned toward the door. The need to find Albus and Scorpius pressed at her. She could not face this alone. She found them in the old library annex near the astronomy tower, a place few students visited at night. The shelves here were thick with dust, their books older than the school itself. Albus looked up as she entered, wand light flickering across his face. "Selena, we were just talking about you. McGonagall's questioning everyone again. She's terrified this is turning into a repeat of the old chamber incident." "She has reason to be," Selena said, closing the door behind her. "He's still alive." Scorpius straightened. "Thane? I heard something in parcel tongue. A voice. It said he fled, and that he's looking for the tear again." The room fell silent except for the patter of rain against the tall windows. Albus frowned. "If that's true, then the chamber isn't as sealed as we thought." Selena nodded. "He might find another way in. The tear is still there, but if he reaches it, he could control the basilisk again." Scorpius finished grimly. Albus ran a hand through his hair. "We need to tell the headmistress." Selena hesitated. She wouldn't believe us. The first time we mentioned the chamber, she thought it was hysteria. And if she learns about my bloodline... Her words trailed off, but both boys understood. Slytherin's legacy still cast a long shadow. To reveal she carried it could make her a target of fear, or worse. Scorpius pushed back his chair. "Then we'll handle it ourselves. We've done it once." Albus gave a crooked smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "You make it sound simple." "Nothing about this is simple," Selena said softly. "But if we wait, Thane will strike first." The three met again the following night. They followed the map from Slytherin's journal, tracing paths through tunnels long forgotten by the school. This time their goal was not to find relics, but to destroy them. The passage beneath the potions corridor led them into colder air. The scent of mildew and stagnant water grew stronger. Albus lit his wand. Lumos Maxima. The light spread, revealing an archway of serpents biting their own tails. Beyond it lay a narrow causeway over dark water. Selena's voice dropped to a whisper. This wasn't here before. Scorpius scanned the runes carved into the arch. It's a ward, ancient, meant to hide whatever's beyond. Can you open it? Albus asked. Scorpius grimaced. Not without the language. Selena stepped forward. She could feel the pull of the carvings as if they recognized her. She spoke a single word in parcel tongue, and the archway rippled like a curtain of glass. They entered. The passage beyond opened into a small circular vault. At its center rested an altar of black stone, upon which lay a shattered piece of glass, faintly pulsing green, the fragment of the tier's power. Selena's breath caught. He's been here. A low voice came from behind them, and he never left. Thane stepped out of the shadows, his robes torn, his eyes wild. You sealed the tier, yes, but magic that old cannot be contained. It seeps through cracks, through blood. It called to me again. He raised his wand, his hand trembling. You were meant to wield it, child, not hide it away. Together, we could have remade everything. Selena's anger burned cold. No, you would have twisted it into something monstrous. You call it monstrous? Thane's voice cracked with fury. Your very gift was born of that same darkness. Deny it all you like, but the blood in your veins is not pure light. Maybe not, she said, but I can choose how to use it. He snarled and flung a spell. The air crackled as bolts of green and red clashed. Albus and Scorpius joined in at once, hurling counter-curses that shattered the damp stones. The fragment on the altar pulsed brighter, feeding on the magic in the air. The walls trembled. Selena ducked beneath a curse that scorched the archway above her and rolled across the floor, wand raised. Petrificus totalis. The spell struck Thane squarely. He froze, his wand clattering from his hand. The echo of the spell faded, leaving only the sound of dripping water. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the fragment flickered again, its light swelling until it filled the vault. With a blinding flash, Selena threw up her arm. The light pressed against her skin like fire, then began to draw toward her as if recognizing its master. The last remnant of the tear sank into her chest with a soft hiss. When the glare faded, the altar was bare. Scorpius stared. Selena, what just happened? She felt it, a faint vibration in her blood, the whisper of something old and waiting. It's gone, she said softly. But it's part of me now. Albus knelt beside the motionless Thane. What about him? Selena looked down at the fallen professor, his face twisted in fury, even in paralysis. He'll answer for what he's done, but this ends here. Together they carried him back toward the dungeons, the storm still raging above. By dawn, Hogwarts stirred uneasily once more. Professors sealed off entire corridors, and the headmistress announced that Thane had been taken to the ministry for questioning. Officially, it was said he'd been caught experimenting with forbidden magic. No word of Slytherin's chamber or its air was ever spoken aloud. Selena stood by the lake as the first pale light broke through the clouds. The storm was fading, the waters calm once more. She watched her reflection ripple across the surface, the same girl, and yet not the same. A soft voice broke her thoughts. You did it, Albus said, coming to stand beside her. Selena nodded. For now? Scorpius joined them, his eyes on the quiet castle. Do you think it's really over? Selena looked out across the lake, her fingers brushing the wand at her side. Deep within her chest, the faintest pulse of green light stirred. Calm, steady, waiting. "I think Hogwarts is never truly without secrets," she said. "But whatever comes next, I'll be ready." And as the morning sun climbed over the towers, it shone through the mist, like a promise, warm and golden. The storm had passed, but its echo would linger in the stones in the halls and in the blood of the last daughter of Slytherin. The days that followed passed in uneasy quiet. Though the castle had returned to its usual rhythm of lessons and laughter, a current of tension still ran beneath its surface, unseen but unshakable. Whispers followed Selena Vane wherever she went, though none dared speak them aloud in her hearing. Students glanced up when she entered a corridor, fell silent when she passed. She had become a mystery, even among her own house. Professor Thane had been taken away by Aurors 2 days after the incident in the vault. It was said he was kept in a high-security ward at St. Mungo's, his mind shattered by whatever magic he'd tried to command. But Selena knew that was only part of the truth. There had been something more in his eyes when they last met, something that made her believe he had not been entirely defeated. The faint trace of the serpent's tear still pulsed within her. It was subtle, like the echo of a heartbeat beneath her own, but she could feel it when the castle grew silent, an ancient awareness, older than Hogwarts itself. She had not told anyone, not even Albus or Scorpius. Some secrets were too heavy to share. Outside, the first signs of spring crept through the forest. The snow melted from the hills, and the lake shimmered once more with reflected sunlight. The castle breathed again, but the peace was thin and brittle. One afternoon, as Selena left the library, she caught sight of Headmistress McGonagall speaking in hushed tones with Professor Longbottom. Their expressions were grave. She could not hear what they said, but as she passed, she caught a single phrase: "The Ministry fears his allies." Her steps faltered. Allies. Thane had not acted alone. That night's sleep would not come. She lay awake, listening to the wind sweep through the Black Lake's waves. The faintest hiss brushed her ears again, though she could not tell if it came from the stones or her thoughts. At last she rose, wrapped her cloak around her shoulders, and left her dormitory. The corridors were empty, the lamps dimmed to soft embers. She moved like a shadow through the dungeons until she reached the wall that once opened to the hidden chamber. "Open," she whispered. Nothing happened. She tried again in the language of serpents. The stones remained still, cold, and silent. Frustration prickled beneath her calm. She could feel the tears' faint hum beneath her skin. She knew the chamber still existed, but the entrance would no longer yield to her. Perhaps the magic had changed. Perhaps it was guarding itself, or perhaps it no longer trusted even its air. She turned to leave and froze. A shadow moved at the end of the corridor. Someone was there. "Who's there?" she demanded, her wand flashing into her hand. The figure stepped into the light. It was a girl, tall, with sharp features and long, dark hair that shimmered with silver. Her robes bore no house crest, though she wore the Hogwarts uniform. "I thought you'd come back here," the stranger said. Her voice was calm, cool, and faintly mocking. "You can't resist the pull, can you?" Selena raised her wand higher. "Who are you?" The girl smiled faintly. "My name is Cassandra Vale. I was one of Professor Thane's students. One of his chosen, you might say. He spoke of you often." Selena's heart tightened. Then you know what he tried to do. I do, Cassandra said softly, and I know why he failed. He thought he could control the tear, but only the true heir could. Only you. Her tone shifted, the softness turning to steel. That's why you're going to help me finish what he began. Selena took a step back. Never. Cassandra's wand moved faster than thought. Petrificus totalis? Selena dodged the spell and countered with a stunning charm. The air sizzled as red and blue light clashed between them, lighting the corridor like lightning. The force knocked both of them backward. Selena's shoulder struck the wall, pain flaring. She lifted her wand again, but Cassandra was gone, vanished into the darkness. The silence that followed was absolute. Selena's breath came fast. Her hands trembled. There was no doubt Thane had left behind more than chaos. He had left disciples. The next morning she met Albus and Scorpius in the courtyard, where a pale sun broke through clouds. She attacked you? Albus asked, incredulous. Yes, she knew about the tear, and me. Scorpius frowned. Vale. I think I've heard that name before. She's supposed to be in her 7th year, but no one's seen her in weeks. Some say she was expelled after Thane's arrest. Or she disappeared with him, Albus said grimly. Selena nodded. If she's trying to restore what he started, she might already be in the tunnels. The chamber won't open for me anymore. That means someone else is forcing their way in. The three exchanged uneasy looks. What do we do? Scorpius asked. We find her, Selena said, before she finds the tear's power again. By evening they had gathered supplies, maps, enchanted mirrors, and torches spelled against damp air. The entrance they used this time was not beneath the dungeons, but through a forgotten trapdoor in the old potion storeroom. Discovered by Scorpius's endless curiosity, it opened into a sloping tunnel lined with green glimmering stones. The air was cold and close, thick with the smell of earth and secrets. They moved in silence, wands raised, every footstep echoing too loudly. After an hour of winding descent, they came upon a door unlike any they had seen before. Smooth, black, and utterly without handle or keyhole. Inscribed upon its surface were words in Latin, sanguis aperit et sanguis claudet. Blood opens and blood closes, Albus translated quietly. Selena's stomach turned. It's waiting for me. Before either of the boys could protest, she pricked her finger with her wand and pressed it against the stone. The moment her blood touched it, the door shuddered. Lines of green light traced across its surface, forming the shape of a serpent. Then it slowly slid open. Beyond was a vast chamber, circular and high, lit by the ghostly shimmer of water dripping from the ceiling into a wide pool. At its center stood a stone altar, and beside it Cassandra Vale. She turned as they entered, her wand raised, eyes gleaming with fanatic light. You came, she said. Good. The tear's essence still burns in you. You'll awaken it for me. Selena's voice was steady. You don't understand what you're asking. That power can't be controlled. Cassandra smiled coldly. Oh, I don't intend to control it. I intend to become it. With a sharp motion, she struck her wand against the altar. The water erupted upward, and something dark and shapeless surged within it. Magic, wild and terrible. The air thickened with a green mist, and a low hiss filled the chamber, like countless serpents whispering in unison. Selena's mind reeled. The tear's echo inside her flared to life, answering the call. She felt it pulling her forward, her blood burning as if the power within sought release. Albus grabbed her arm. "Selina, don't." She struggled to stay upright. "If I don't stop her, it'll consume us all." The hiss became a roar. The mist coiled into serpentine forms that lashed toward them. Albus and Scorpius fired spell after spell, breaking through the oncoming waves of green fire. Cassandra stood at the altar, her arms raised, eyes glowing with unnatural light. Selina stepped forward, shouting over the storm of sound. "Enough!" Her voice was not her own. It was deeper, older. The mist froze midair. The serpents dissolved into sparks. Cassandra gasped, dropping to her knees as the light in her eyes flickered out. Selina's wand hand trembled. The tear's power, awakened by the struggle, throbbed beneath her ribs like a living thing. "Go," she said through gritted teeth, forcing the power back down. "Get her out of here." Albus hesitated. "Selina, now." They obeyed, dragging the unconscious girl toward the door. As they passed through, Selina turned once more to the pool. Its waters had gone still, yet faint glimmers of green light lingered beneath the surface, watching. "Sleep," she whispered in Parseltongue. "Sleep, and be silent." The light dimmed and the water lay quiet once more. When she emerged from the tunnels hours later, the first pale light of dawn touched the castle spires. The weight of the tear's legacy still pressed on her heart, but she had learned something in that darkness, that the blood of Slytherin did not bind her to evil. It bound her to choice. And as the morning sun spread over Hogwarts, Selina vowed silently that whatever power she carried, she would use it not to rule, but to protect. The dawn that followed was veiled in silver mist, and the castle seemed to breathe a long, tired sigh. A quietness lay over Hogwarts, one that was not peace but exhaustion, the silence that comes when too many secrets have been spoken. Selina Vane stood upon the battlements overlooking the lake. The air was cold and wet with dew, the surface below smooth as black glass. The events of the night before replayed in her mind. Cassandra Vale's wild eyes, the green mist writhing like a living thing, and the terrible pull of power that had nearly consumed her. She had stopped it, barely. But she could not forget the feel of that energy inside her veins. How easily it had responded, how natural it had felt to command it. She shivered and drew her cloak tighter. Behind her, the heavy door creaked open. Footsteps approached. "I thought I'd find you here," said Albus Potter. His voice carried softly in the chill air. "You've been avoiding everyone since last night." Selina didn't turn. "I needed time to think." He came to stand beside her, resting his hands on the cold stone of the wall. For a while, neither spoke. The mist swirled around them, carrying the faint scent of rain. "She'll be all right," he said at last. "Cassandra, Madame Pomfrey says she'll recover, though she doesn't remember much. Maybe that's for the best." Selina's gaze remained fixed on the lake. The tear's energy did that. It doesn't destroy. It devours memories, reshapes them. She'll never be the same again. Albus glanced at her. "And you? Are you the same?" She finally turned to meet his eyes. "No," she admitted, "but I don't know what that means yet." He hesitated, then asked quietly, "Do you still feel it? The tear?" She nodded. "It's quieter now, but it's still there, waiting. It's part of me." Albus's expression was thoughtful, troubled. "Then maybe it's not something to fight," he said slowly. "Maybe it's something to understand." Before she could answer, a voice echoed from the doorway. "Potter, Vane, what in Merlin's name are you doing up here?" Professor Longbottom's figure appeared through the mist, his cloak whipping in the wind. His tone was stern, but his eyes held concern more than anger. "We were just—" Albus began. "I know what you were doing," Longbottom interrupted, lowering his voice as he approached. "The headmistress would have both your heads if she knew you were anywhere near the tunnels again. But I also know the three of you have done this castle a service none of us could have managed." Selina blinked in surprise. "You believe us?" Longbottom smiled faintly. "Let's just say I've learned to keep an open mind. I've seen what this school can hide." His gaze softened as he looked at her. "You've carried something heavy, Miss Vane, perhaps heavier than any student should. But remember, what we inherit doesn't define us. What we choose does." The words struck deep. She bowed her head slightly. "Thank you, Professor." He nodded once. "Now both of you get some breakfast before McGonagall finds out I let you freeze to death up here." He turned and left, his cloak vanishing into the fog. Albus grinned faintly. "He's right, you know. You look like you haven't eaten in days." Selina allowed herself a small smile. "You sound like my mother." "Smart woman, then." They walked back through the corridors together, the quietness between them no longer heavy but companionable. That day, classes resumed as though nothing had happened. Yet the castle felt different, its shadows less menacing, its whispers softer. Scorpius met them at lunch, tossing his bag onto the table with his usual careless grace. "Did you hear?" he said in a low voice. "The ministry's closed the case. Thane's being moved to Azkaban under guard. They've labeled it dark experimentation gone wrong." Selina frowned. "And Cassandra?" "She's being sent home. The headmistress said she's not fit to continue her studies." A silence settled over them. Scorpius tapped his spoon against his cup. "You know, most people would take that as good news. But you look like someone told you your cat died." "She's not evil," Selina said quietly. "She was lost, like Thane, like so many who think power is the same as purpose." Albus nodded slowly. "It's over now. You stopped it." Selina looked down at her hands. Over doesn't always mean ended. That night, she dreamed, she stood once more in the chamber beneath the lake, the air thick with shadow and the scent of ancient stone. The statue of Salazar Slytherin loomed before her, its eyes glinting faintly in the dim light. "Blood of my blood," the voice whispered again, echoing from every wall. "You sealed what I began, but the serpent's song cannot be silenced. It sleeps in the walls, in the water, in you." Selina lifted her head. "Then teach me," she said. "If I carry your blood, let me understand it, not to command, but to protect." The voice paused, then softened, like wind moving through dry leaves. "You seek to mend what was broken. Few have done so. Remember this, daughter. Power serves the will of the heart that wields it. Guard yours well." The light flared and she woke. Weeks passed. Spring brightened the world beyond the castle walls. Students laughed again, exams loomed, and the great hall was filled once more with careless noise and the smell of warm bread. Selina studied hard, trained harder, and began to feel, if not normal, then at least whole. The scar of what had happened beneath the castle remained, but it no longer ached. One evening as the sun sank behind the forest, she sat with Albus and Scorpius by the lake. The water shimmered gold and green, reflecting the drifting clouds. "So," Scorpius said, skipping a stone across the surface, "any chance the next year at Hogwarts will not involve deadly secrets, ancient curses, or nearly being eaten by serpents?" Albus smirked. Unlikely? Selena smiled faintly. Hogwarts doesn't let its legends rest for long. A comfortable silence followed. The breeze was soft, and the air smelled of blooming flowers. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to relax, to breathe. Then faintly from beneath the lake, she heard it, a whisper, distant and low, a serpent's sigh. She didn't flinch this time. Instead, she listened and smiled. "I hear you," she murmured under her breath. "But you don't command me, not anymore." The whisper faded. The ripples on the lake stilled. Scorpius glanced at her. "What was that?" "Nothing," she said softly. "Just the past saying goodbye." When night fell, the lamps along the corridors shimmered in calm golden light. Students hurried to their dormitories, laughing, trading stories, and making plans for the holidays. Selena lingered behind, walking slowly through the halls that had once felt like a maze of fear. Now they felt like home. At the entrance to the Slytherin common room, she paused, running her hand over the stone wall where once the hidden door had opened to the depths. The stone was smooth and silent. "Thank you," she whispered, "for teaching me who I am." And somewhere far below, in the sleeping dark, the ancient magic of Hogwarts stirred gently like the slow exhale of an old dream. Selena turned away, her footsteps echoing softly in the corridor. The daughter of Slytherin walked forward, not as an heir to power, but as its guardian. And for the first time in a long while, the castle slept in peace. Summer drew close, and with it came the shimmering light of endings. The grounds of Hogwarts bloomed in color, the lawns glowed green, the lake mirrored the sky, and the castle towers gleamed in the sunlight as though centuries of shadows had finally been lifted. Yet beneath all the warmth and brightness, Selena Vane felt a strange weight within her, an unease that lingered no matter how peaceful the world appeared. The tear's power had quieted in the months since Cassandra Vale's defeat, but it had not vanished. It pulsed faintly now and then, like a heartbeat that did not belong to her, reminding her that some parts of the past could never be fully buried. She had learned to live with it, as one might live beside a silent storm. Exams came and went. Students packed trunks and chattered about holidays, about freedom, about home. Selena joined in when she could, smiling and laughing when expected, but her thoughts often drifted to the lake, the place that seemed to hold the castle's secrets in its still depths. On the last night before departure, Hogwarts hosted the traditional leaving feast. The great hall shimmered with gold and green banners, candles floated low and bright. The chatter was warm, yet it carried a new tone, one of relief and of endings survived. Selena sat between Albus and Scorpius, her plate half-eaten, her gaze on the enchanted ceiling where stars twinkled softly in a painted sky. "Do you ever think about next year?" Scorpius asked, balancing his fork on his fingers. "A whole new defense professor again. Maybe this one won't turn out to be possessed, cursed, or mad." Albus snorted. "Don't jinx it." Selena smiled faintly. "After this year, I'm not sure Hogwarts knows how to go a whole term without a little chaos." They laughed quietly together, but the comfort of it only lasted a moment before Albus lowered his voice. "You never said what happened to Cassandra after she left." Selena's eyes darkened. "She was sent to a private facility for magical recovery. The ministry calls it a place of healing, but I think they're studying her. They're afraid of what Thane left behind in her mind." Scorpius looked uneasy. And what if they find out about you? She met his gaze steadily. They won't. I'm not my ancestor. I'm not Thane. I don't want power. I just want peace. For a time, no one spoke. Then the headmistress rose, her silver hair gleaming under the candle light, and addressed the hall with her familiar stern warmth. To all our students, she said, you have faced challenges beyond what this school should ever demand of you. But courage, friendship, and wisdom have triumphed over darkness once again. Remember, Hogwarts endures because of you. The hall erupted in applause. Selena joined in, though her eyes drifted toward the tall windows where night gathered beyond the glass. Somewhere out there, beyond the forest and the lake, shadows still moved. She could feel them, faint as a memory. Later, long after the feast had ended and laughter had faded into the dormitories, Selena found herself walking alone by the lake. The moon hung full and white, scattering silver across the rippling water. Fireflies hovered among the reeds. She stopped at the water's edge, her reflection clear and ghostly. "You're restless tonight," came a voice behind her. She turned to see Albus approaching, his wand held low for light. He looked as though he'd known exactly where she'd gone. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. "Something like that," she said. "The lake's quieter at night. It helps me think." He came to stand beside her. "I used to come here too. My dad said he did the same when he was a student, when he had things he couldn't talk about." She smiled faintly. "Did he ever have something like this?" Albus shook his head. "No, but he did have a scar that reminded him of what he'd survived." "You're not so different." They stood together in silence, watching the moonlight dance on the water. Then faintly, a ripple disturbed the surface. Something moved beneath, slow, graceful, vast. Selena's breath caught. "Do you see that?" Albus nodded, his eyes widening. "It's not the basilisk. That thing's gone for good." "No," she murmured. "It's something else." The shape glided closer, breaking the surface with a sound like a sigh. It was a serpent, yes, but smaller, softer, its scales pale as moonlight. Its eyes glowed a calm, gentle green. Selena stared, unable to move. The creature regarded her with quiet intelligence, then dipped its head in what seemed almost like a bow. She stepped forward, the hem of her robes brushing the water. "You're not here to harm us," she said softly in Parcel tongue. "No harm," the serpent whispered back. "The tear's guardian sleeps, but balance must remain. Where power is bound, watchers are born." Albus looked from her to the creature, realizing what she was doing. "It understands you?" She nodded. "It's the echo of what was sealed. A protector, not a weapon." The serpent lingered a moment longer, its eyes gleaming like stars beneath the water's surface. Then slowly it slipped away into the depths, vanishing with barely a ripple. Selena exhaled shakily. "It's not gone, Albus. The magic, the legacy, it's changed. But it's still here." He studied her face, the pale light glinting in his eyes. "Then maybe that's how it should be. Maybe Hogwarts keeps its shadows for a reason." She smiled faintly. "Perhaps." The next morning dawned golden and clear. The Hogwarts Express waited on the tracks, steam curling into the bright sky. Students bustled about, laughing and shouting farewells. Selena stood beside Albus and Scorpius. On the platform, her trunk at her side, her wand tucked safely in her sleeve. "So," Scorpius said, squinting toward the train, "what's the plan for the summer, O mysterious heir of ancient power?" She rolled her eyes. A little rest, maybe some reading that doesn't involve curses or giant snakes. Albus grinned. You've earned it. The whistle blew and they boarded. The train gave a lurch and the castle began to recede, shrinking into the misty hills. Selina pressed her hand to the window. The towers of Hogwarts glimmered one last time in the sun. As the landscape rolled past, she felt that faint pulse again in her blood, the echo of the tear, alive but no longer heavy. It felt less like a burden now and more like a reminder that she was part of something vast, ancient, and unfinished. She closed her eyes and let the rhythm of the train lull her into a quiet reverie. In her mind's eye, she saw the chambers beneath the castle, sealed and sleeping, the pale serpent gliding through the lake, and the faces of those she had saved. The world was wide, and darkness would always return in some shape or another, but so too would light and courage and friendship and choice. When she opened her eyes again, the horizon was bright with morning, and somewhere deep within her, the last daughter of Slytherin smiled, unafraid. The summer air was thick with the scent of wild flowers and distant rain when Selina Vane returned home. Her mother's cottage stood at the edge of a quiet valley in Devon, an old stone house with ivy creeping up its walls, and a garden filled with silver-leaf herbs that shimmered faintly under the moon. It was peaceful here, far from the whispers of Hogwarts and the burden of legacy. At least that was what she told herself. Each morning she helped her mother tend the garden, pruning wandwood vines and gathering potion ingredients from the shaded beds. Each afternoon she would sit beneath the elder tree at the hill's crest and read. Yet no matter how serene the days seemed, a restlessness stirred within her, the same hum she'd felt since the tear had bound itself to her. Sometimes, when she touched her wand, sparks of green light flickered at her fingertips. Sometimes when she dreamt, she saw the reflection of a serpent coiling in dark water and heard the echo of an ancient voice murmuring, "Balance must remain." She had hoped the distance from the castle might dull the pull of that power. It did not. One evening, as twilight deepened over the valley, Selina sat by her window, quill in hand. The parchment before her bore the beginnings of a letter, her third attempt at replying to Albus's last owl. His letters had been frequent and cheerful, full of chatter about his father's work and Scorpius's summer spent abroad. She envied their ease. Her own letters remained half-written, filled with pauses where words failed. How could she explain what she did not fully understand herself? A soft thump startled her from thought. She turned to see a barn owl tapping at the window pane, its feathers streaked with rain. She opened the latch, and the bird swept in, dropping a sealed letter upon her desk before retreating to the bedpost to preen its wings. The seal was not Albus's. It was dark green wax imprinted with a coiled serpent. Her breath caught. No one had used that symbol since. She broke the seal. To the heir who walks among the living, the tear stirs. What was bound will soon seek release. Meet me where the stone remembers your name when the moon wanes. No signature, only a faint trace of ink that shimmered oddly like scales beneath light. Selina's pulse quickened. "Stone remembers your name," she whispered. The phrase tugged at her memory. The wall in the dungeons, the sealed chamber. The tear was awakening. She did not sleep that night. By dawn, she had packed her bag, leaving only a short note for her mother. The first train to Hogsmeade left at sunrise, its whistle echoing across the quiet hills. When she arrived, mist clung to the village streets. and the outline of the castle loomed beyond the lake, its windows dark. The gates were sealed for the summer, but she knew paths that no caretaker patrolled, hidden tracks through the forest that led to the cliffs below the dungeons. By the time the sun fell, she was standing once more before the smooth stone wall that had once opened to her voice. She drew her wand and whispered, "Open." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then with a deep groan, the serpent carving flickered into life, its eyes glinting faint green. The seam split, and cool air breathed from the darkness beyond. Selena stepped inside. The descent felt longer this time, the air heavier, thick with the scent of damp stone and something faintly metallic, like blood. Her footsteps echoed softly until she reached the chamber's heart. It was not empty. A figure stood before the statue of Salazar Slytherin, a tall woman cloaked in black, her face shadowed beneath a hood. When she turned, her eyes gleamed pale silver. "Who are you?" Selena demanded, her wand raised. "I am the memory that never died," the woman said softly. "I am Morgana Vale, Cassandra's mother." Selena's grip tightened. "Your daughter nearly destroyed this place. What do you want?" "Justice," Morgana whispered, "for what you did to her, for what this castle took from me." Her hand lifted. The air rippled as she drew forth a crystal pendant, the faintest fragment of green light pulsing within, the tears shard. Selena's heart lurched. "That's impossible. I destroyed it." "You destroyed one piece," Morgana said, "but power like this cannot be unmade, only divided." The tear's essence splintered. One part chose you. Another found its way to me. The air around them grew colder. The serpent carvings on the walls seemed to writhe. "I don't want to fight you," Selena said. "The tear is dangerous. It will consume you, like it did Thane." Morgana's smile was slow and bitter. "Thane was a fool. He sought domination. I seek balance, restoration of what your kind has feared for centuries. The blood of Slytherin was meant to endure, not fade into myth." "By destroying Hogwarts? By remaking it," Morgana hissed. "The old magic still lives beneath these stones. You of all people should feel it." Before Selena could reply, Morgana thrust out her hand. The shard in her palm flared, and the ground split with a deafening crack. Water surged upward, flooding the floor with cold light. From the depths, something vast stirred. A shape uncoiled, a serpent formed not of flesh, but of liquid shadow, its body translucent, its eyes blazing emerald fire. Selena's wand arm trembled. The creature was no true basilisk, but something older, a spirit born of the tear's remnants, summoned by Morgana's will. "The guardian returns," the voice hissed in Selena's mind. "But who shall command it now?" Morgana's laughter echoed through the chamber. "Foe serpent, I am your mistress now!" The spectral basilisk lunged. Selena dove aside, the serpent's tail striking stone and sending shards flying. She rolled to her feet, firing a burst of crimson light that struck Morgana's shoulder. The woman staggered but did not fall. Her pendant glowed brighter. "You cannot win," Morgana shouted. "You and I are the same." "No," Selena said, her eyes hardening. "I chose to be different." She raised her wand and, in a voice filled with ancient resonance, spoke in Parcel tongue. "Cease." The basilisk froze. Its burning eyes turned toward her, uncertain. Morgana's pendant flickered. Selena stepped forward, the tear's power awakening within her chest, answering the call. "I am the daughter of Slytherin," she said in the serpent's tongue, "and I command you to obey." The creature hesitated, then lowered its head. Morgana screamed. The shard in her hand cracked, spilling green fire. No, you are not the heir. Selena lifted her wand. I am his redemption. A surge of light burst from her palm, striking the shard. It shattered with a thunderclap, the fragments dissolving into mist. The spectral serpent let out a final hiss and faded into nothing. Morgana fell to her knees, her power spent, her voice a broken whisper. You think you've saved them, but magic like this never sleeps. Selena looked down at her. Then I'll be here when it wakes. The chamber began to tremble, cracks racing along the walls. Water cascaded from above, flooding the floor. Selena turned and ran, the roar of collapsing stone following close behind. She burst through the serpent door, just as it sealed itself shut, leaving the ruins buried beneath the earth once more. Outside, the dawn was breaking, a pale, quiet light spreading across the grounds. Selena sank to the grass, soaked and trembling, the scent of stone and ancient magic still clinging to her skin. She gazed toward the castle's spires, golden in the morning sun. The blood of Slytherin still flowed within her veins. Yes, but so did something far greater, the will to shape her own fate. And as the wind rose over the lake, carrying the whispers of the past into the dawn, Selena Vane, last daughter of Slytherin, lifted her head and smiled. The summer waned, and the days grew heavy with the scent of ripening fields. Selena Vane stayed on in Devon after the battle beneath Hogwarts, though sleep came seldom and rest never lasted long. Her mother noticed, of course. Mothers always do, but asked no questions. There were things between them that had long been left unspoken. The father who had vanished before Selena's birth, the strange moments when mirrors flickered or the wind whispered her name. Now, after all she had faced, the silence between them felt full rather than empty, a fragile peace that neither dared break. But one evening, as twilight bled into the hills, a visitor came. Selena was in the garden clipping the heads of moonflowers for potion stock when the air shimmered near the gate. A tall figure in green auror robes appeared, his hair windswept, his spectacles catching the last of the sun. Mr. Potter, Selena said, startled. You didn't owl. Harry Potter smiled faintly. Old habits die hard. I thought I'd pay a call in person. He looked older than the stories told of him, lined not with weakness, but with the kind of weariness that only years of watching the world refuse to stay at peace could bring. May I? He asked, gesturing toward the path. Selena nodded, leading him through the garden to the stone bench beneath the elder tree. The breeze stirred the leaves, carrying the scent of earth and rain. I imagine you know why I'm here, he began. Selena folded her hands in her lap. Because of what happened beneath the castle. Harry inclined his head. The ministry's been trying to keep it quiet, but magic like that never stays buried. They found traces of residual energy near the dungeons, power older than the school itself. They're worried, and frankly, they should be. I destroyed the tier, she said softly. At least what remained of it. I believe you, he said. But there's more. Morgana Vale is missing. Selena's breath caught. She was there, Mr. Potter. I saw her fall. She didn't die, he replied grimly. We found traces of a disapparition ward breaking near the cliffs. Weak, but there. My team searched for days. No body, no trail. If she's alive, she's gone to ground. The words chilled her more than the evening air. She has no power left. The shard was destroyed. Harry's gaze was steady. Power like that always leaves echoes. And people like her, people who believe they've been wronged, don't stop chasing what they think they deserve. They sat in silence for a while, the shadows lengthening. At last he said, "The ministry will want to question you again. I'll make sure it's handled fairly. But there's something else." He reached into his robes and drew out a small silver locket. It was simple, unadorned, until the light touched it, and a serpent's faint outline gleamed across its surface. "This was found in the wreckage," he said. "It isn't cursed, but it's ancient. The runes match those in Slytherin's private writings." He placed it in her hand. "Whatever it is, I think it belongs to you." The metal was cool against her skin, yet it pulsed faintly as if acknowledging her touch. Harry stood. "Keep it safe, Miss Vane. The past has a way of finding its heirs." Then, with a soft crack, he was gone. Selina stared down at the locket, the silver gleam catching the first stars above the valley. Somewhere deep within, the faint hum of the tear stirred in response. That night, she dreamt again. She stood upon a staircase of black stone descending into water. The air shimmered with green light, and at the bottom waited a mirror as still as glass. Her reflection looked back, but it was not quite her. The figure in the mirror smiled faintly, her eyes gleaming brighter than emeralds. "You cannot destroy what you are," the reflection whispered. "You can only choose what to become." Selina reached out and the mirror rippled. She awoke with a gasp, heart pounding, the locket glowing faintly on the bedside table. 2 days later, an owl arrived bearing the Hogwarts seal. The letter was brief and written in the headmistress's sharp hand. "Miss Vane, we have reason to believe the wards below the castle are weakening. Your insight into the matter is requested at once. A carriage will be sent at dawn. Monsieur McGonagall." Selina folded the parchment and stared at the pale light filtering through her window. There was no hesitation in her decision. By morning she was on the road again, the castle rising in the distance like a memory reborn. Hogwarts in midsummer was strange, empty of laughter, filled instead with a hum of unseen magic. The portraits watched her curiously as she passed, whispering behind gilt frames. McGonagall met her in the headmistress's office, her expression grave. "The disturbance began 3 nights ago," she said. "At first it was small, flickers in the dungeons, faint whispers in parcel tongue. But last night the lower corridors began to flood. Water seeps through stone that's been dry for centuries." "The tear's remnants," Selina said softly. "It's reawakening." McGonagall's eyes softened. "I feared as much. Can it be stopped?" "I don't know," Selina admitted, "but I'll find out." She descended once more into the depths, the air cool and thick with the scent of age. The old wall greeted her in silence, no serpent carving, no light. Yet as she drew near, the locket at her neck grew warm. She touched it and the stone shuddered. The serpent's eye flared briefly. The passage opened. Beyond lay the chamber, flooded now, waist deep in dark water. The statue of Slytherin was half submerged, its face worn but solemn. Green light shimmered beneath the surface like the heartbeat of the world. Selina waded forward, each step heavy. "I sealed you," she whispered to the air. "Why do you call me back?" A ripple spread through the water, and from its center rose a faint shape, a figure of mist and memory. The voice that spoke was calm, ancient, and weary, because the balance shifts. One legacy has ended, another begins. "Who are you?" she breathed. "I am what remains of the Founder's will." The tear was never meant for conquest. It was a covenant, a bond to guard against the chaos beneath these halls. You broke the seal to save the living, and in doing so, freed the old magic from its chains. Then how do I mend it? By choosing, daughter of Slytherin, the blood calls for a guardian once more. The magic must dwell in a vessel willing to hold it, not as master, but as keeper. Her throat tightened. You mean me. If you refuse, the tear will seek another, and next time it may not choose so wisely. She closed her eyes. The water whispered around her legs, cool and endless. The burden she'd carried all year pressed down on her shoulders, heavy and familiar. I accept, she said quietly, not as heir, but as protector. The light flared, enveloping her. She felt warmth spread through her chest, through her blood, through every corner of her being. Not pain, but understanding. The hum she had carried for months grew steady, calm, alive. When the light faded, the chamber was still. The water had stilled to mirror glass. The voice was gone. Selena looked down at her hands. The locket hung around her neck, its silver surface now etched with a new symbol, a serpent coiled around a tear-shaped flame. She smiled faintly. Then let the guardianship begin. The stone door closed behind her as she left, sealing the past once more. Above, dawn broke over the castle spires, bright and gold. For the first time in many generations, Hogwarts was at peace, not because the shadows had vanished, but because someone had chosen to stand between light and dark, holding both in balance. Selena Vane, keeper of the tear, daughter of Slytherin and guardian of Hogwarts, walked out into the morning light, the whisper of serpents fading behind her like a lullaby from the deep. The next weeks unfolded like a dream, half quiet, half haunted. The castle breathed again, as if relieved of some invisible weight. Yet for Selena Vane, each day carried a pulse she could not ignore. The tear's essence now settled within her, moved like a tide beneath her heartbeat. It did not hurt nor frighten her anymore. It was simply there, like the thrum of magic in the air, an echo that whispered of purpose. The headmistress gave her leave to stay at Hogwarts through the end of summer, under the guise of assisting with archival work. In truth, she was not ready to return to the ordinary world. The halls that once echoed with danger were strangely comforting now, their shadows familiar. The portraits of old founders seemed to watch her with new curiosity. Even Slytherin's likeness, faded by centuries of time, seemed to regard her not with suspicion, but with something like recognition. Each morning she walked the corridors alone, her footsteps soft on the flagstones. She would pause before certain walls and feel the hum of wards beneath her fingers, ancient protections that pulsed faintly now, restored by the act she had performed. The balance of magic, as the spirit had said, was steady once more. Yet balance is never still. It waits, it watches, and sometimes it trembles. One evening when the summer sky was streaked with gold, Selena sat by the edge of the black lake. Her reflection shimmered beneath the fading light, half girl, half something more. A ripple broke the surface, and a faint shadow moved beneath. A serpent gliding slow and silent through the depths. It paused just below her reflection, its eyes glowing faintly green. Guardian, the voice hissed in her mind, calm and solemn. The wards breathe again, yet danger stirs beyond the walls. The past reaches toward you still. Where? She whispered, her hand tightening on the grass. Across the sea. The last fragment calls for its host. Before she could ask more, the water stilled, and the shadow was gone. Selena sat motionless, her thoughts whirling. A last fragment. She had believed the tear's remnants destroyed, absorbed, sealed. Yet the world's magic was wide, and ancient forces seldom die. They scatter, they sleep, and they wait. That night she returned to her dormitory and drew the silver locket from beneath her robes. Its surface shimmered faintly, the symbol of the serpent and flame glinting in the lamplight. When she pressed her fingers to it, warmth spread up her arm and her vision clouded. In her mind, she saw a vast ocean beneath stormy skies. On the horizon, a tower of black stone rose from the waves, its peak wreathed in mist. Within its heart, a faint green light pulsed, and a voice, familiar, cold, and certain, spoke her name. Morgana. Selina woke, breathless, the image seared into her mind. Morgana Vale lived, and she had found what remained of the tear's power. At dawn, she wrote to Albus. Her message was brief. Meet me at King's Cross. Urgent. By evening, the familiar red train stood gleaming on the tracks, though the station was near empty. Albus Potter waited by the barrier, his dark hair ruffled by the wind, curiosity bright in his green eyes. Selina, he said, seeing her expression. What's wrong? Morgana's alive, she said simply, and she's not finished. He stared. You're sure? I saw her. Not here in a vision. The tears showed me. She's somewhere far from England across the sea, and she's found something. Another fragment. He frowned. If that's true, the ministry needs to know. They'll only slow us down, she said, her voice firm. They won't believe me, not until it's too late. Albus hesitated, then nodded. Then you're not going alone. She managed a small smile. I hoped you'd say that. 3 days later, they stood aboard a narrow, wizarding vessel bound for the northern isles. The wind was sharp, the air tasting of salt and storm. The sea stretched endless and dark beneath them. Scorpius had insisted on coming as well, his humor a welcome spark amid the tension. If you two insist on chasing ghosts and curses, he had said, someone needs to make sure you don't drown or explode. The journey was long and restless. At night, Selina dreamed of the tower rising from the waves, closer each time. The tears' pulse within her grew stronger the nearer they came, as though it yearned for what awaited ahead. By the fourth evening, the storm struck. Lightning clawed across the sky, and the ship pitched wildly on the black waves. Selina gripped the railing, her robes plastered to her skin. Ahead, through the rain, she saw it, the tower, just as in her vision. Black stone, ancient and glistening with sea spray, rising from the ocean like the spine of some long-dead beast. The ship struck the shallows and they clambered ashore, soaked and breathless. The air crackled with raw magic, heavy and cold. Selina led the way, her wand raised. This place is older than Hogwarts, she murmured. I can feel it. Older and probably more cursed, Scorpius muttered. They entered through a broken archway, the interior lit by faint green fire. The walls were carved with serpents, though their shapes were rougher, more primal than those at Hogwarts. It was a shrine, but not one built in reverence. At the heart of the tower stood a pool of black water. Above it hung a crystal suspended by chains, its glow bright and alive. Morgana, Selina whispered. The woman emerged from the shadows, her once beautiful face drawn thin, her eyes alight with feverish power. You came, she said softly. I knew you would. Morgana, stop this. The tear's fragments will destroy you. Morgana laughed, a sound sharp as breaking glass. Destroy me? No, child, they've remade me. The founders sought to contain magic they could not control, but I will set it free. The crystal flared, and the air surged with energy. Waves crashed against the outer walls. The tower trembled. Albus raised his wand. "We have to end this, Selena." She nodded once, her voice steady. "Together." They fired in unison, red and gold light colliding with the crystal's green glow. The force shook the chamber, sending cracks through the stone. Morgana screamed, the light consuming her as the crystal shattered, releasing a storm of emerald fire. Selena felt the tear's essence within her surge outward, meeting its twin. The two forces collided, merged, and then silence. The storm ceased. The air cleared. Morgana's voice faded like mist. Selena collapsed to her knees, gasping. Albus caught her as the last of the light dissolved into the air. "It's done," he said softly. She looked up, her eyes glowing faintly with green fire before dimming to their usual silver gray. "Yes," she whispered, "it's over." But even as she spoke, she felt it. The tear's power no longer restless, but whole, complete within her. She had not destroyed it this time. She had absorbed it. When they left the tower at dawn, the sea was calm, and the ruins lay silent behind them. Yet Selena knew that something had changed, not just within her, but within the magic of the world itself. The tear was no longer a relic of Slytherin. It was part of her, woven into her blood, her soul, her will, a bridge between what had been and what would come. As the ship carried them home across the glittering waves, Selena stood at the bow, the wind tugging at her hair. The horizon burned with morning light. The last daughter of Slytherin had become something new. Not the heir of darkness, but the keeper of its light. Dawn broke like gold spilled across the sea, and the waves that had thundered through the night now murmured softly against the ship's hull. Selena Vane stood upon the deck, her hands gripping the worn railing, her eyes on the brightening horizon. The air smelled of salt and sunrise, the world at peace once more, or so it seemed. Behind her, Albus and Scorpius stirred from sleep, their cloaks pulled tight against the morning chill. They were exhausted, bruised, and yet alive. The tower of black stone had vanished into the depths behind them, leaving only scattered fragments of mist and memory. Albus joined her at the rail, his voice quiet. "You haven't said a word since it happened." Selena's gaze remained fixed on the water. "There isn't much to say. It's done." Scorpius appeared beside them, hair wild from the wind. "Done? You mean after facing ancient serpents, collapsing towers, and mad witches, we finally get to rest?" Selena almost smiled. "Yes, for a time." "Good," he said, stretching, "because if anything else tries to kill us this year, I'm transferring to Beauxbaton." Albus laughed softly, but his eyes lingered on Selena. "You still feel it, don't you? The tear?" She nodded. "It's quiet now. No more whispering, no more visions. Just part of me." He studied her for a moment, then said, "You're not afraid of it anymore." "No," she replied, "because I understand it. It was never meant to be a weapon. It was a promise to guard what others could not see, a balance between creation and ruin, between light and shadow." The sea shimmered as the sun climbed higher, and the wind caught her hair, scattering strands of dark gold. For the first time in months, she looked peaceful. When they reached the mainland, ministry oars were waiting. The ruins of the tower had drawn attention from across the wizarding world. But Harry Potter himself was among those who came aboard, and his steady hand on Selena's shoulder eased her worry. "You've done more than anyone could have asked," he said, "but the ministry will want to question you again, and they'll want to know what became of the tear's power." Selena met his gaze evenly. Tell them it's gone." Harry studied her face, then nodded. Very well. She knew he didn't believe it, not entirely, but he would keep her secret. He had carried secrets heavier than hers before. They returned to London by Port Key, and by the following day the story had already begun to spread. The mysterious tower destroyed by storm. The remnants of Salazar Slytherin's relic lost forever. It was what the world needed to believe. A week later, Selina stood once more before the gates of Hogwarts. The castle glowed amber in the evening light, its reflection mirrored in the still waters of the lake. She had not planned to return so soon, but some callings cannot be ignored. The gates opened at her touch. She crossed the grounds in silence until she reached the great doors. Inside, the air was cool and familiar. Candles flickered along the walls. The portraits of former headmasters nodded as she passed, their painted eyes watchful but kind. In the great hall, she found Professor McGonagall seated at the high table, parchment spread before her. The old witch looked up as Selina entered. "I wondered how long it would take before you came back," she said, her voice touched with a rare smile. "You've had quite the summer, Miss Vane." Selina bowed her head slightly. "I came to make sure it was truly over." "It is," McGonagall said. "The wards are stable. Whatever storm once lingered beneath our feet has gone quiet. But I imagine peace will not sit easily with you for long." Selina hesitated. "No, headmistress, it never does." McGonagall folded her hands. "Then perhaps it's time you learned to use that restlessness for good. Hogwarts could use a guardian, someone who listens when the stones whisper, who feels when the magic shifts." Selina blinked. "A guardian?" The headmistress's eyes gleamed. "An old title, but an important one. Not all dangers come from outside our walls. Some stir from within. You've proven that you can walk between both worlds, the light and the shadow." A long silence stretched between them, filled with the faint hum of enchanted air. Finally, Selina said, "I'll do it." McGonagall nodded once. "Then you have a home here for as long as you wish." That night, Selina wandered the castle she had nearly lost. The corridors glowed softly under the moonlight. Portraits whispered to one another as she passed, and the scent of candle wax hung faint in the air. She paused before the entrance to the Slytherin common room, the green light of the lake shimmering beyond the windows. Her reflection appeared in the glass, no longer uncertain, no longer afraid. The silver locket hung around her neck, the serpent and flame faintly glowing. "Guardian," the voice of the tear whispered, not as command but as greeting. She smiled. "Yes," she said aloud, "I'm here." Days slipped into weeks, and soon the 1st of September arrived once more. The castle awoke with laughter and footsteps, with owls swooping through the rafters and trunks clattering against stone. New students crossed the threshold with wide eyes, their voices bright with wonder. Among them, Selina moved quietly, no longer just another face in the crowd. To the world, she was a prefect, a diligent student, perhaps a little older than her years. But the castle knew her for what she was, the keeper of the old balance, the watcher of the deep. She spent her evenings by the lake, speaking softly to the waters, where the guardian serpent sometimes glided, unseen but never absent. She studied spells older than the founders themselves, learned the patterns of ancient wards, and taught herself to weave light where darkness once had lived. One night, as autumn's first wind swept through the castle, Albus found her in the courtyard staring up at the stars. Still keeping watch? He asked, sitting beside her. Always, she said with a small smile. Hogwarts never truly sleeps. He nodded toward the heavens. Neither do you, it seems. She turned her gaze upward. The stars gleamed like runes written across the sky. I used to think legacy was something we were trapped by. Now I think it's something we choose to carry or to change. Albus smiled. And what will you do with yours? Selina considered, the wind lifting her hair. Guard it, protect it, make sure it never becomes what it was again. They sat in silence after that, the night vast and full of promise. The castle loomed above them, ancient and eternal, yet alive with new magic. And far below, in the hidden depths where no light reached, a soft ripple disturbed the waters. A serpent's eye gleamed once in the dark, watchful, loyal, content. For the first time in centuries, Hogwarts was safe, and so the tale of the daughter of Slytherin ended, not in darkness or in ruin, but in light reborn. The serpent's heir had become its guardian. The tear's power had found its keeper, and beneath the ageless towers of Hogwarts, where secrets slumbered and legends whispered through stone, Selina Vane stood as the bridge between what was and what would be. The last link in an ancient chain, and the first spark of something new.